Okay, let us go ahead and get ourselves started today. We have another action-packed agenda. There's so many things we want to show you to kind of get you ready to, have better and better skills in terms of doing modeling of some of the different types of building elements and get yourself ready for cool things that you can apply in the assignment. So, it really becomes this whirlwind thing just to kind of get everything kind of stacked in there. But in particular, some of the things we're going to talk about today. Oops, is the mic still on? There's less echo, but it's okay with you. It's okay with me. Okay. What's happening is we're going to be talking about continuing with the multi-story buildings. We'll kind of keep on going on stairs a little bit and talk about the whole issue of the openings around the stairs and how we can create single openings or shafts to actually have a whole series of different openings that will run all the way up through a building, as well as railings to kind of enclose all those so people don't go falling into the holes. And important stuff to do. We want to be sure to also talk about design options today. That's the whole notion of having these parallel universes where you have what's considered a primary option, but we can also consider some things that you may want to change in the context of that primary model, just giving yourself a little bit of flexibility there. And the final piece we're going to take a look at is just, we get there today, we may not quite get there today, the whole notion of how you create custom geometries. And this is all about, we've done some playing around with component families and how you bring in things from a library or from Revit City or Seek to add things to your model. Every once in a while, though, you want to create something that isn't one of those standard pieces, and you really want to start creating something that's very custom to your specific situation. So how you can really just create any general type of object. Okay, and there's a technique called modeling in place, which is really the origin of how we create component families. So there's some really good techniques to teach you there about just extruding and sweeping and all these basic 3D geometric operations that then give you infinite power. You can create whatever you want to, no restrictions. Okay. So I'm going to start with the whole issue of multi-story buildings. And to get us going today, I actually decided to give you a model that it's kind of an example of a multi-story house that I did in Palo Alto here a couple of years ago. If you want to download it from the coursework website, if you just go to session 8, you'll find not only the handouts for today, kind of all about stairs and railings and design options, but you'll kind of find a couple of versions of this Graves house. That's a house that's actually built over here. You can go visit it. It's pretty close by. It's an example of like a little 2-story house. It kind of has an interesting construction system. It's all done with SIPs, or structural insulated panels, because it was designed to be sort of very, very energy efficient. I'm sort of proud of it in the scheme of different houses we've done. It's probably the most energy efficient house we've done. It's where, because of the way the users or the people live in the house, as well as some of the energy efficiency things in it, it's one of these places where the power bill for the entire year is like on the order of $70, which is pretty incredible. It actually comes very, very close to being net zero. Yeah, they are, partly the house, a lot for how people live in the house. So it's a combination of those things. So if you want to go ahead and download that, there's the Revit version of the file. There's also a zipped version of the file, but I think the Revit file will probably work for you. And one of the reasons I want to share it with you is it's just kind of an example of, a relatively complete design. So it is a 2-story house. I did it kind of in a design development sort of way, but you'll see some of the detail that goes in as we take that basic model and start adding construction detail and all the information that's ultimately needed to get it through the building permit process. So I have that thing hanging around in my Session 8 folder. If I can get there. Maybe I can't get there. That's even louder than me. And that's hard to do. Where are they going? That's interesting. Okay, let's open this up. So here's a basic little house as well as a separate garage. This was designed to fit on sort of a very tight site in Palo Alto. So it's actually very long. It's kind of long and skinny in the scheme of things. It could actually also be built in a modular way if you want to start thinking about that. It's designed in such a way that it's almost like 2 different pieces that got parked next to each other. But it's 2 stories and a basement, and that's the kind of basis of the 3D model. And if you want to take a look at that, you can go to any of the different floor plans, floor plan, first floor, floor plan, second floor, what you'll actually start to see is that, we use the models in different ways. There are like different views set up or duplicate copies of the view where different information is added in there. So this is not only the architectural elements, but you'll see there's a lot of dimensions. There's also some grid lines because it has a very repetitive post and beam system as the structural system. But, the electrical information's in here. There's a lot of information kind of layered into this drawing. And we can go ahead and filter it in, filter it out. For example, in this one, all the electrical outlets are showing. If I didn't want those to be showing, again, I would just do something like visibility graphics. And I'll just turn off electrical as a category. Just knock those out, just kind of clean it up a little bit. But this whole issue about views and how you set up different types of views and add annotations to views, you can sort of see an example of how I do that when I'm actually producing a set of construction documents. So the house is, it's kind of interesting in just the way it is designed, but let me just kind of take you to the 3D view and kind of give you a little tour of what's going on. This is the main 3D view. This big thing that you see all around it right now is the section box. So that's just a way to quickly cut. I can go through and open any individual section, but I can also just take this box and start pushing and pulling on the boundaries of it to get to sort of a specific point. And this way of working is actually very, very useful to you as you're doing your development of the design. You can start to see just really how the stairs are going to work, just what the vertical relations are going to be. Just kind of cuts through the building. Yeah.
Is that what you mean by a 3D section?
Yes, this would be a 3D section. Okay. And different cool ways of generating those. We'll talk about some of it. Let's relate it back to the homework things. So this is kind of an example of a 3D section. See if I have some other ones in here. There's also a 3D section just kind of cutting through the house in the other direction. Okay. And let me kind of just reiterate how show you how you create some of those different views, because there's some easy techniques to help you get there. You can take the 3D view and turn on the section box and just push and pull the boundaries around. That's always one way to get here. But another way, which is really quite handy and easy to use to go through and create these type of views is, let me see if I can find the sections. I have a bunch of sections cut in here. So I have a 2D section of the house, and really how I created this 2D section of the house was over in the floor plan views. If I go to one of the structural plans, you can see I have a bunch of different sections cut through the house. So just at different points when I was trying to understand the vertical relationships and how the structure was going to work, I cut all these, some of which show up on the sheet, some of which don't. But there's these sections cut, and for each of those, there's actually a 2D view. I can just double click on that. Like that. So that's the 2D section. And how do I get that to be a 3D section? The easiest way is actually this. Just open up a 3D view. Just the default 3D view is a great starting point, and I'll usually get that by either clicking on the little house up here at the top, or coming on down in the 3Ds. I have a 3D default view, the one that has little brackets on it. Once I have that, I can right-click on the view cube over there, and there's this Orient to View choice. So it's a right-click. It's a little hidden, but within there, I can then go through and choose any of these different sections. So, if I want to get a section at line 8, it moved it to there, it moved the section cut to there. So then I can actually just rotate that around. So, in fact, that's the depth of the section. I can sort of see it from both sides. Now, that's a good starting point. If you want to go through and adapt that, no worries. Just choose the view cube and pull that on out to whatever level you want. So that works not only for sections, it's also pretty handy for floor plans. A lot of times people have a hard time just relating to a two-dimensional flat floor plan. If you want to give them a 3D view, you think that will help them understand what's going on better, not to worry. We'll take that same 3D view, and using this Orient to View, I'll say floor plans, and I'll just choose, let me see the first floor plan as a 3D view. It'll rotate it around. I just have to orbit it back up. But yeah, a lot of people look at their floor plans that way. Sort of see the furniture, see the cabinetry. It's all about, really, more than anything, you're telling a story, and the important part is you got to tell it well in a way that people are going to understand, and you're going to get them the information they need to make the decisions you need. So it's all about whatever views are going to help you tell that story better. So just these are all parts of your repertoire of what you have available to you. So once you've created the model, you have a lot of flexibility about how you want to tell the story from there. The other type of view I'll show you that's part of all this is, I mentioned this notion of a ground floor perspective view, these camera views and how to use those. I'm just going to give you an idea. I have, for example, let me find right rear, what do I have down? Front left ground. Okay. This is the notion of a perspective view just on the ground level. That is, from here you can get a pretty good sense of just really what it is like to walk up to the house. Or again, from the front right, just kind of set off on that angle. This is really useful for the homeowners. It's also useful when you're trying to explain something to the neighbors about how this house is going to look, to actually see it in the context of what it's going to look like as you walk up on the sidewalk, stuff like that. So how you create these views, it's very straightforward. We'll just go to the first floor plan, if that's the level at which I want to place the camera. Every time you place the camera, it has a notion of not only where the eye is of the camera, where the lens is, but also what the target is. Okay, so when you place the camera, you start by saying where you want the target, the camera to be, the eye level of the camera. That's why I'll go to first floor, and then I can look up or around at something from that position. So if, for example, you wanted to create your own camera view of the outside of the house, I'll say view, give myself a nice 3D camera. I'll come to the front of the house. You can't see it right now because I'm kind of cropped out, but it is there. And there it is. Notice as I'm placing it, I have this notion, it's the offset. That is how high I am off of the floor. So my eyes are about 5'6" off the floor. Okay. From the first floor, we can kind of position that a little bit differently. So if you want to be down here and look up, which gives you a more dramatic view, raise it lower down to 3, or be up and looking down. You have a lot of options here. Just place that camera. That's a starting point. And that camera may not be looking at exactly what you want to be looking at right now. You can always adjust a camera. Under this little steering wheel, you have this look option, which will let you kind of shift it around. That's a little bit dramatic. I may be in a little bit close to the house right now, so I can do something like, oops, I walked too far. When I do that, I can rewind to get back to a reasonable spot. Let me try that again. I will look. And what I want to do is actually walk backwards a little bit. So I'm going to choose the walk tool. I'm going to just walk it back slow. Oh, I'm walking in. No. How the walk tool works is, let me see if I can show you where it is. See that little dot that in the blue? That is sort of an indication of where we are. If you hold down behind the dot, I back up. If you hold down in front of the dot, you move forward. And how close you are to the dot controls the speed. So as I walk, oops, I'm rewinding. Okay, that's going to be almost dead still. If you move up, I'm moving a little forward. If I move back, I'm moving back a little. Okay, just so you think about what's going on with all these different certain notions, let's kind of walk them through. Okay, you place the camera. Okay, what is walk? Walk is, I'm actually moving the camera. So I am moving back, my eyes are moving with it, or I'm moving forward. Okay. Look is different. Look is, I'm already at a single place. It's just, am I looking here? Am I looking here? It's just orbiting around the camera. Same camera position, different target. Okay. Other ones that are sort of available in here, there's up and down. That's all about this. Okay, do I want to pan down or do I want to pan up? It's just moving my eye position. Okay, so if you choose that, I can go up and go down. The target stays the same. It's just really where the camera position is. But you can kind of adapt those to be wherever you want to. Yes?
Why didn't you let home the
Say again? Oh, yes. It's kind of an interesting one. Yeah. You can. The easiest way to do that, what would you call that? It's the kind of the depth of all that. It's really just by kind of moving that out. So if you just move the boundary out, you can have and it'll show you that actually in the floor plan. Let me warn you about that. Okay, because here's this thing a lot of people will do. You'll be up close to the house. Oops, Let me rewind again. Okay, let's go back to a reasonable spot. Okay, so I will switch over. Let me walk up close to the house again. And when I'm going to do this, I'm going to try and be relatively controlled. You say, hey, I'm too close to the house. I got a problem here. Okay. So I'll zoom on out, ZO to zoom on out, and I'll start changing these boundaries. Oh, I want to see more to the left. I want to see more to the right. I want to see up more. Okay. And what I'm doing is I'm actually just changing that whole notion of the cameras, the aperture. Yeah, if you're good at photography, help me with the right terms. I'm making it basically a wide or a fisheye lens at this point. Okay, so if you want that fisheye effect super, that's really good for creating very dramatic views. Okay. If you don't want that effect, because like if I was showing this to the people next door, they'd look at this and go, oh my God, you're building this monster house next to me. I don't want that. Okay. What you'll tend to do is go for the other effect. You'll get way away and have like a telephoto lens and then go through and just crop it much closer. So the other way to do that if you want to see the house is as follows. Instead of doing this big old fisheye thing, I'll just walk backwards. Okay, so get away from the house. Okay, it sort of has a more natural perspective at this point. And if I really want to zoom in there, just crop it. So this gets back to your storytelling then. It's really, learn to artistically use the tools depending on the story, what you want to tell. If you're going for the architectural entry in the competition, you may want drama. If you're trying to fit into the neighborhood, you may want to calm the situation. So whichever way really sort of works best for you. Okay, but those are the camera tools. And the camera tools work just as well inside as outside. So in your house, if you have that dramatic living space with a huge fireplace and this fantastic entertainment going on in there, you can go through and just put a camera anywhere inside the house. You'll see in this model, I have a lot of cameras kind of hanging around in there, just showing me different parts of the house. Towards the corner seat. Some of them are just very utilitarian. I just needed to explain to someone what the master bath and the shower was going to look like. Some of them are more interesting. In the kitchen area, towards the dining room. Just to kind of explain. Here I wanted you to sort of see what the post and beam system would look like. Understand the furniture a little bit. Actually, this is probably a good one to show you just in terms of understanding the level of detail at different points. Yeah, you'll notice in this interior view, what is it? If this was really a finished rendering, I could put placemats on the table and dishes and flowers and all that kind of stuff. I could go through and add all that in there if I had more time and really wanted to do that. This level at which the big pieces of furniture are there, so you just get a sense of how wide that dining room is. Even for the cabinetry, you'll see a lot of my cabinetry isn't really well articulated. It's just sort of rectangular blocks, which are just filling space to give you an idea of how you're going to move around it. So we don't really know if there's going to be shelves here or drawers or what's going to happen there just yet, but I know there's going to be some sort of cabinet there, and I'll articulate that later. And that's okay. For the level we're doing now for this assignment, that's okay. You can just sort of have blocks of cabinetry. Even the fact that my countertop doesn't have a hole in it, so my sink's not quite looking right. Again, I'll say that's okay at this level. As we get further towards doing rendering, we'll keep on fixing those things. Yeah. We're going to show you that today. Actually, so hang on just a little bit later. This is an example of a custom piece. And really just to give you a preview of where we're going to learn how to basically draw the profile, very much like you draw the profile of the floor, something like that, and just extrude it up. Give it a material and give it a thickness. Okay, so. Is that? Yes. Actually, what's happening here is my countertop and my sink are intersecting. So this cabinet actually does have a hole in it, but yes, it's the countertops intersecting there. And I should go through and clean that up. Oh, I'm such a glutton. I'll show you how you do it just because I'm dumb that way. Okay, we'll go into like the first floor. Preview of the coming attraction. I'm easily led down these paths. Okay, I'll choose that countertop. That's something called object which has been modeled in place. Again, don't worry about how I do this yet. We'll show you at the end of class. I'm going to choose this guy and say I'm going to edit our extrusion. That's its boundary. So if I wanted to fix that problem where the hole was in the sink, I could do something like this. I'm going to cut a hole in that. You sort of know that from boundary rules. And if I take a boundary and I put an interior path inside that, I could either sort of cut out the entire sink. I could just cut out the recessed portions of the sink. Let me finish that up. If I was really good, I would lock those to the edges so that if the sink moved, the hole would move with it. Say OK to those things. And now, if we go on back, 3D view, where'd it go? Kitchen, towards the dining room. So we have a good looking sink now. Okay, so that's the preview of what's coming. Really, this whole notion of editing and changing boundaries and stuff like that, that works out pretty easily. Okay. Where am I? I look like I'm in the middle of a mode. I am. I'm in modifying an extrusion. Let me go back to the floor plan so I can close this out. Floor plan first floor. Finish it. Okay. So that's just really to get us started. An example. So go and play around with that model. You'll find a lot of just kind of cool things that might kind of prompt you about things that you can, ways you can attack some of these issues in your own models, stuff like that. So just use it as an example. Okay. Today, what we want to talk about, as we kind of keep on plowing through with building your modeling skills, is these stairs and how you go through and create these stairs. And we started with stairs. Stairs are actually, they're not a bad topic. They sort of lay out pretty easily at the start, but then you start adding complexity to it. So let's just kind of build up your repertoire, your vocabulary of like how you can work with stairs. So let's go through, and I will even, I'll create some stairs outside the house just because it'll be easier to see. And we can put them in. I'm going to try and expand that just so I can see this. I'm going to pull up so you can sort of get more of the house. The problem with my section box is sometimes I end up grabbing objects as opposed to the handles. Okay, there we go. So we'll put a stairway outside here. And just to give this some context, let's go ahead and I'll even put some floors in here. Oops. Not walls, floors. So let me do it like in a floor plan view. Okay, here's a good example. You note that I have this thing that's called print floor plan first floor. I don't want to change that because that's actually going to be on the sheet. It's the finished one. I don't want to change the cropping and all those things. What I want to do is actually just have, more of a working view, just something that I can sort of play with. Actually, you see I do have one of those. There's floor plan first floor versus print, where print is the one where everything's pretty much locked into place, and I want to leave it that way. First floor plan, since it's not the print one, that one I can go through and kind of keep on making changes too easily. So if, for example, I want to start changing the crop, that's not going to change the printed appearance on the sheets. So go ahead and get used to that, having several different versions depending on what you need. So I'm just going to put a floor out here, just so we have something to work with. At the first floor, what do I got in here? Let's put that wood finish floor in here. And all I'm doing is giving myself some floors so that we can go through and make some stairs between them. Finish that one up. I'm going to go up to the second floor, do the same sort of thing. It's better. You can. Yeah. It's either order. It's really, in fact, we're going to cut the holes in the floor in just a second to do that. So let me go through and put a floor up here on this side too. What you can't see right now is you can't see that floor on the first floor. Let me take a look at my view and see if I can make that happen. I can turn on something called an underlay. An underlay is actually, I'm looking at the second floor. If I want to see the first floor kind of ghosted out in the background, just kind of gray, so I can trace on top of it. So it won't move it up there. It'll just kind of show me a ghosted image of it. I can turn on an underlay. Okay. Then you can sort of see there's that floor on the first floor. Again, it's still on the first floor. I just did that so I could see it and use it for tracing. I'm going to put a floor on the second floor also, just so we have something to connect to our stairs to. Okay, so back over in 3D land. I got one. Oh, I know where that is. Pull that down a little. Okay. So I got these two floors hanging out, and we're going to create some stairs to connect those two different floors. So stairs, again, the big thing about the stairs you have to think about is there's a floor-to-floor height difference, and we have to break it up into a set number of risers. Okay. Now the rules for the risers, by default, Revit will assume a 7-inch maximum riser, which actually isn't as tall as they can be. Residentially here in the US, we could actually make them 8 inches. So that's a type property, and we can go ahead and change that. Maybe I'll show you how we can change that. So in your houses, 7-inch risers are okay, but it means you need more risers so the stair takes more room in the house. If you want to have an 8-inch riser, just to allow you the flexibility to do that. And where you do that is when you go through and choose the stair tool. I'll choose stair by component. That's kind of the easy way at first. You'll see that there's a stair where it has 7-inch max riser, 11-inch tread, and that's a type of stair. You'll see there's another one here that says 8-inch max riser. That's because in this model I already set it up this way. Okay, in your model I don't think it's set up this way by default. But what you would do is take the defaults one, you would edit the type, and always, okay, you can see that maximum riser height is one of the type properties. So what do you do when you want to go through and have a new type that's a little bit different but keep the old one around? You always go through and duplicate. Okay, and I'll just make it our new 8-inch stair. It's just a name. And within that, then I can go through and just change that property, and that'll give me the ability to now have something that has those higher risers in it. So all I'm doing is creating a type that has a different set of rules applying to it. And if you actually want to see the rules, they're here, where basically the rule is they're using 2 times the riser plus 1 times the tread depth is 25 inches. Okay, so that's all based on this notion of as you're strutting along, how your hips moving, and where your foot's going to land. And you can change all customizable. So now that we got our 8-inch stair, let's think about our issue here. We're suggesting a stair from first floor to the second floor. Okay, no worries. It's telling us that that height is 9 feet. That's based on just from the building model, what the first floor and the second floor is. So 9 feet times 12, that's like 108 inches. Right, okay. So we're going to take that 108 inches. We got this 8-inch stair. It's saying, okay, if I took 108 and divided it by 8 and to whole increments, okay, I could actually get 14 different chunks in there if those chunks were 7 and, a little more than a half big. Okay, so it's 14 stairs. It's dividing that. I can always increase the number of risers. That's okay. It just makes shorter stairs. It doesn't like us to decrease the number of risers, because if you decrease the number of risers, you'll probably start violating the rule about what the maximum height is. Okay, so 15 would be fine. If I try to take that down to 12, for example, it'll always complain, whoops, the problem with this is this would give us 9-inch risers, and you told me that's not allowable. So it's just having us back off a little. Okay. So I will keep it at the 14. Again, I could raise it, make them even smaller, but 14 is pretty good. So now we're just going to think about how is our stair going to work. Is it 14 stairs in a straight run? Is it 7 stairs that go up, and we make a little U-turn and come back 7 stairs the other direction? Okay, that's called a dog leg stair. Okay, if it kind of comes up and comes back. You can have a U-shaped stair. We can have a round stair. All these different sort of stair options. Okay, and they all sort of work the same. What I'll do is actually I'll draw it in floor plan because it's a little bit easier for me to think about it that way. Sometimes I'll draw my stairs outside the house or outside of the location to move them in. Sometimes I put them right in the location. You kind of decide whatever's easier for you because they are just an object. You can move them kind of as a big group. So I'll start by creating sort of the single long stair. Notice as I go pulling the stairs up, as I pull, it's going to tell me how many risers I put down, how many are remaining. So 14, 0 left right now. Okay, if I'm back over here, it'll tell me 7, 7 remaining. You ultimately have to put them all down. So let me just do the long straight stair first. Say okay. Let's take a look at that in 3D. So we're doing pretty good. We got that stair in there. Now, stairs, again, I think we talked about last time, all have properties, so I can change the railing properties. Instead of the handrail, if I wanted to have some sort of, like a solid wall there instead. That's interesting. That's not too bad looking, actually. Do I know a little closed wall in there? Oh, what else do I have in there? This is a guardrail. Let me show you what that is. As opposed to just a handrail, that not only has the handrail has this, or handrail has a guardrail, so it's a little bit higher. Around balcony edges, we need that. Let me just go back to kind of the pipe rail. Okay. Once we go through and place that, you will see where we are getting ourselves in trouble, or where it's not doing for us is cutting a hole in the floor. Okay, so let's talk about that. When we create individual stairs like this, we'll typically go through and cut a hole in the floor, just an individual hole in the floor to kind of match that. And let's think about what the requirements are of that. In a little bit, we're going to place a multi-story stair. It's going to go all the way up several floors, and then I'll show you a different thing called a shaft, which makes it really quick to do that. Okay, but let's just kind of cut a hole for this one. So here's how it works. I got this stair. It's kind of hanging around, poking through there. What I'd like to do is actually go up to the second floor. You can sort of see the ghost of the stair right there. And what I'm going to do is go through and edit that floor. So I'll choose the floor and edit its boundary. Now we're ready to go ahead and start just cutting a hole or putting an interior boundary in there. And that's kind of worked out okay. I can be very precise or a little loose, however you want. I'm just going to make a big old rectangle wrapping around here. I'm going to talk about how precise to be with this hole in just a second. I'm not going to quite make it all the way, though. Let me talk about that. You could go ahead and have the opening be over the entire stair. Often, though, you don't need to do that. Kind of an architectural decision. What you do need to do is make sure that when people are walking up the stair that they don't hit their head. Okay, and the rule for that is that at any point, okay, the opening has to be 6'8" clear above the stair so that you can not hit your head. And let me show you what I mean. Just put the hole in here. Okay, I got a hole there. You might wonder, okay, I got a hole in there, I got a stair right there. How can I tell how much headroom I have at this point? You know, is there going to be enough headroom between here and here to make sure that no one bumps their head? Okay. So any ideas about how to do that? I should ask you guys. Yes?
You measure from the end of the nose to the bottom of the floor.
An excellent idea. And what what's that?
And the supporting structure you got in there.
Exactly. And we have to make sure that the floor frame, that it's not there, that hitting it too. And what view would you suggest doing that in? Excellent. Excellent. So, what I'll do is come back up to that second floor. I will choose the section tool. And this is an example. Sometimes I cut big old building sections because I want to show you something. Sometimes I cut little working sections just because I need to find an answer. So, no worries. Let's do a little working section here. Looks like my sections are invisible right now. Let me turn them on. It complained at me and said that something I was creating wasn't visible. Actually, I should have done that slower so you can see sections. Okay, so here's my little section view. Let me show you what happened again. I put it in there. If in this floor plan view you don't see the sections, what you can say is view and then visibility graphics. And then sections considered an annotation, where the section marker is. And it was just turned off down here. So I'll turn that on, sections, and then I can see them. It's kind of a common thing with building models. A lot of times it is there, you just can't see it, and it almost always is related to either your visibility graphics as it turned off, your cropping or your range of your view is just not showing it to it because it's above your head or below the bottom of the view. You know, the default is always, I usually just go to 3D view and see if I can see it there, and then try and figure out why I can't see it in the 2D view. Okay, so I got a nice little section going here. Let's take a look at that. You can kind of shade that. See if we can figure this out. It's a little hard to see because that's actually the edge of the floor. Let me kind of adjust the section a little bit, just to kind of show you how you might fix that. Like on this section, sections have this notion of a range, how far out you want to look. If the answer I'm trying to get is really just about what's happening in the stairwell, I can pull that range back very close to the section line. What's happening in the section now, since I'm seeing the end of the floor off in the distance, it's kind of hard to tell where the floor is ending. So I just trim that up to make that a little closer, and that's a little bit better. So here's the floor. We'll ignore the structure right now. There would typically be a foot of structure under here. In fact, we can even sort of allow for that. If I don't have the structure modeled in there yet, what I can do is, a lot of times as I'm working, I'll just add little detail lines in there. Now, detail lines don't have any real physical meaning. It's just something to help me as a construction line understand what's going on. So I can go ahead and say that, I'm going to guess there's going to be about a foot worth of floor framing under here, and just draw that, just so I have some sort of sense. Okay, that has no real model meaning. That's just actually just a little sketch for me right now. So I would like to basically make sure that at no point is someone 6'8" tall going to hit that thing. So a number of ways you can do it. The way I usually approach this is I'll take another detail line, and I'll actually just do one from the nose of the stairs up to the nose of the stairs up there, something like that. So just something that's going to perfectly follow the slope of the stairs. And then take this and just move it. So I can move it like 6'8" up. Ooh, pretty close. Not too awfully bad. I could also do that. I got a little tape measure in here, and I can try to figure out, measure through there, just exactly what that's going to be. Okay, but it's measured 6'8" vertically. Okay, so based on this, I really should go ahead and pull that back just another few inches to make sure that no one's going to get that. I could also go through, and sometimes you'll find people kind of chamfer those off. Okay, but it is an issue for tall people, and there's several in the room. You hit this. What's that?
6'8"?
It's 6'8". Well, it's not that you're necessarily 6'8", but what happens is when you're up on this stair and you're coming on down real fast, sometimes you're leaning forward. So even though you're up here a little bit, if you're leaning a little, your head still hits it. Yeah, so it's amazing. Like, do you ever hit your head on stairs? In old houses, I do all the time. Yeah, that's what it is. It's that if you measured vertically, it's fair. It's that you're leaning forward a little or something like that. Okay, so if I needed to do that, I'd come on over here. I'd say that floor is not quite right. Let me edit its boundary. Oh, I can go to one of the floor plans, take a look at that, because I can't really edit it in the section view. So I might need to pull that back just a hair. Whatever it is. Go back over there. Pull that back. Okay, so now we're in good shape. So just want to warn you about that. That's actually one of the hardest issues with stairs, is the issue of headroom and allowing room for headroom, especially if you have stairs that sort of wind up on top of each other. Just trying to figure out whether or not you have the appropriate headroom. So sections are your friend when you're doing that. Okay, so that'll get you a nice kind of single stair. That's not too bad. We got sort of the basic idea of doing a floor over there. Let's talk about some variations. Let's talk about other kind of shapes of stairs that you might want to put in there and how you can customize them. And then we'll talk about what happens if you have a bunch of stairs, or like in a building that'll go up 3 or 4 floors, and how you create those. Because there's some cute, cool shortcuts for doing that. So here's the deal. My straight stair, he's kind of okay. The problem with a straight stair is it actually takes a fair amount of run. It's a fair amount of room that it's going to take out. And you can stick furniture underneath the stairs. There's all these different things you can do. A lot of things can happen underneath the stair. But if that's kind of taking up too much room, you might want to think about other ways of adjusting the stair. So some of those variations, and we started on some of them last time, are back to the good old stair tool. And in the stair tool, you will find, okay, we're doing runs, sections of straight runs. A very popular one is all go up, about halfway. So I've created 8, 6 remaining. We come back to 7. And it doesn't have to be even, but conventionally it often is. I'll place half the stair right there. Then I'd like to keep going with the stair. So what can I do? I can go off at a 90-degree angle. I can go off at a 180-degree angle. Any of those things. I can go and put another leg of that stair in there. It will put a landing between the two. So dog leg looks like this. I'll come on back and pull this direction. Now as I come on back, watch out for this. The temptation is to come over here and click right over on the end point of this and pull back. What you don't want to do that for is you're actually indicating the center line of the stair. Okay, and I'm actually creating sort of two halves of a stair. Actually, it's very similar to that picture I showed you at the beginning of the quarter. Yeah. So that's probably not a good thing in terms of having a double back that way. You got to leave yourself a little bit of breathing room between the stair sections. And it'll go through and fill in the landing for you. Did I get it all? There's the end of it. Now, the cool thing about the stairs, as you're creating stairs as a component, like you can stretch and push them around. So, for example, if you decide that this landing isn't really what you had in mind, I can make it bigger. I can make the whole width of this landing bigger there. I can stretch out the stair there. I have a lot of pushing and pulling. I can do a lot of stuff to it to go ahead and customize the shape the way I want it to be. So you can make sort of simple shapes like that. Close that one up. Other ones, oh, the three-legged stair. So up once, up twice. Oops, a little too close there. See, notice it even complained that it couldn't make me a landing based on that. So let me go ahead and see if I can pull that apart. Will it do it then? That's not going to fix it. Interesting. I'm going to have to add the landing back into that one as a separate thing. If you need to, this is the landing tool. So if you have two runs and they're not connected by a landing, you need to get a landing back in there. The landing tool lets you say, give me that stair and give me that stair, and it'll put a landing between them. Fill in the gap. So these straight stairs are actually pretty easy to run with. Like that. So there's almost a bad pun in there somewhere. Okay. Make a little three-legged stair there. And again, these shapes, it's quite independent now. You know, the issue of the rail, the type of the stair, those are type properties. Laying out the basic sketch of the shape is an independent thing. You can really kind of do that independently. You see 1 through 7's here, 8, 9, 10, 11's here, 12, 13, 14 is counting off the risers for you. Okay, so straight stairs are, you know, they're not too awfully bad. Yes?
Does that make stairs continue around the bend and not have flat endings?
Yes. That is the ever popular winder. So let's talk about those. Let's kind of close that one up. Now, that's an interesting thing. If you're from a lot of parts of the world, like not in the U.S., winder stairs are pretty common, especially in older buildings. In the U.S. now, they're not favored. The building code doesn't like winders so much, but I'll show you where they are. They're over in here. There's an L-shaped winder and a U-shaped winder. So an L-shaped winder is something like that, whereas a U-shaped winder like wraps around like that. But that's this notion that they're all going to go pinch to a point. So you can play games like that. Again, that's just a leg of it. I guess what it's actually doing here, it's giving us an L-shaped winder that we can connect together with some more landings. Close out of that. The other type of stair that a lot of people like to play with is the notion of some sort of circular stair. The circular stair is, we can either specify it by choosing a center point and pulling out. Okay. And that's like a full 14 risers at the same time. So I just sort of say where I want the bottom of the stairs to be. Notice it's kind of doing an interesting thing. If I get real tight, you see like this is going to be a full 360. If I go further out, it doesn't actually make a full 360. And let's talk about that. Because stairs actually have their own like rhythm to them. They don't really want to be much more than 10 inches deep, kind of at the center point, because then it'll be like just too long stride to kind of get up there. So as I pull this out and give it a bigger radius, each individual stair is kind of tracking in here. It's really 14 steps along the run. So what happens is if the stair gets very broad, okay, it takes less and less of the full corkscrew to get up. If the stair gets very small and teeny tiny, it'll actually even double back on itself. Okay, so you know, what's happening here is just based on the width of the stair, or the, I guess the radius of the turn. Okay, it's adjusting this spiral so that it does the appropriate thing. And here's what I mean. It's this distance right in here, the run distance, that's the part that wants to be like 10 inches, something like that. What happens with spiral stairs is this middle part's always very small. It's like 3 inches or 4 inches. That's why people often trip down spiral stairs, because when they get really tight in there, if you're going fast and you get too close to the center, it's like almost just going vertically. The broader out there. But they measure them sort of by the distance in the middle. Now, that's all cool. Let me give you one other variation in terms of stairs, because these really are completely customizable. And what it looks like is this. We're going to go through and take that stair. We're going to pop it in here. Here's kind of a straightforward stair. Looking pretty good. Let me go back and edit it. What I'm actually going to do here is do something called converting it to a sketch. Let's see if I can find it. I can sketch right there. There's flipping. I choose that. Convert it. Talk about what that's all about. Generally, this notion of creating stairs as components works for you. You should stick with that. It's easier. Kind of makes your life, clean. What happens is, if you want to, you can go through and actually convert a stair into a sketch, and that gives you even more detailed control. So you can edit the sketch of a stair. It'll actually show you there's a run line, there's boundary lines, there's riser lines. So if you had a very custom situation, you probably won't have this unless you're really trying to accomplish something very architecturally different. I could, for example, change the boundary line. So I could go ahead and pull that on out. Okay. What I'm going to do then is change the boundary of the stair. This is going to be where all the risers are. These are the boundaries. That's the run. When I finish that, it'll create a stair that just follows that boundary. So you can create very custom boundaries. I can make stairs that go up at funny angles, or funnel in or funnel out, whatever it is you want to do in there. Another thing you can do with this, again, not advocating you do it, but just so you know, these riser lines are currently just set up straight across. If in your grand southern mansion you want to go through and have a stair over, oops, I'm going to go to a riser. I want to have one of these stairs where the bottom has some big sweeping arc like that. Okay. Well, I can do that for a second one. The only trick is you have to have the right number of risers. So I want to do something, oops, I got to do riser lines. That's a straight line. Get that one back out of there. I'm trying to get another arc line in here. If you want to go through and riser, arc, I'll get it eventually. So I want to have something like that. Okay. That'll work too. Oh, it doesn't like that. Riser, close. What's it complaining about? Say again? Oh, thank you. You are so right. That is so helpful, actually, when you help me with that stuff, because a lot of times, you're looking at stuff and you just don't see it. Thank you. Okay, so then up and in here. Let's see if we can find that grand. There's that southern stair. Okay, finish it up. Okay, of course, it doesn't have a very good looking railing on it, but we'll work on that. There's other railing types. So, not too bad, but lots of flexibility in terms of stairs. All these things with railings and stuff like that. We're going to learn how you can ultimately, you can make glass railings, you can make cable railings, you can make all these different types of railings. And it's really just, railings have properties to them. Okay. Let us do this. Let us go ahead and, since it is 9:55 just about, let's pause if we can for about 5 minutes. That'd be okay? Don't run too far away. Come on back at right around 10. We'll keep this going with the railings issue and how to do a multi-story stair with a shaft. Okay? So don't go too far, but come on back and we'll sit around and answer some questions.